Hi, I'm Dawn.
And I'm Ashley.
We'd like to welcome you to the Work It, You Are Worth It podcast.
We're two friends sit around and talk about healing, growth, and healthy relationships.
Hey, Ashley.
Hey, Don, how are you?
I am good. How are you?
I'm amazing. I have had a great weekend. Hung out with my daughter on Friday and my granddaughter, and
No.
ended up going out and having a great time last night. And now we're doing this.
So you said a couple of podcasts ago that your granddaughter was like trying to walk but scared to walk. Is she officially walking yet?
So if we don't look at her, she will walk. But if we look at her, she will not walk. And she is now 9 months old, 10
Okay.
months old. She is 10 months old
So
now.
any day, but
Any
that's
day.
cute.
She definitely, like the other day, she walked across her living room
Hmm.
to the kitchen where her mother was. But as soon as she realized that her mom was looking at her, she stopped and started crawling.
Aw. They're so that is like the cutest age. It's just because they're starting to do stuff and everything is new and fun and but yet they're still the oh so
They're
cute.
still the babies, the sweet
Yeah.
and adorable and snuggly. Yes, I love her. She
Yes.
is so perfect. She's
Oh,
amazing.
that's good.
Yeah, so they'll be over for dinner tonight, so that's nice.
Okay.
And my youngest got to go hang out with her brother for the weekend.
That's amazing.
Her
And
brother
the
and
new
his
wife.
wife. Yep, her brother and his wife came and picked him up on Friday night, and she went over there with them.
And the wedding. The wedding. We haven't talked about the wedding. How was it?
It
Did we
was
talk
it was
about it?
awesome. It was gorgeous. No, we didn't talk a whole lot about it. It was I don't think we did last week. We didn't record.
Oh,
It
that's right.
was it was very small. It was very intimate.
Hmm.
It was very pretty. It was very
Oh,
peaceful, and we had a great time.
that's amazing. That's amazing. Um,
Yeah. And we all went out to dinner afterwards and laughed and joked, and it was a lot of fun.
that's good. That's good. Yeah. Sometimes I don't know. I've had a big wedding and I had a little wedding on the beach, and there's something about just an intimate wedding that I feel like my first wedding was so big and people I didn't know and people I didn't really care were there and it was fun, right? It was the wedding, traditional wedding of what, right? I bought my dream wedding dress and I did all things and it was amazing and I loved it from that perspective, but it was also a lot of stress, a lot of work, a lot.
Right.
And my second wedding was just, you know, Dylan, Mark and I. And you know what's so funny? Mark and I fought before the wedding and then fought after the wedding. Like, because it was just,
Really, on your wedding day.
yeah. He was mad because I wanted to, for me, it was you're like we're coming together and right, you're marrying Dylan and I. And like, well, you're marrying me, but Dylan is part of me. And he didn't want Dylan to say anything and didn't want to be part of it. And I'm like, this is my right, this is who I want here. This is the one person in my world that matters to me. There were so many signs I shouldn't have got married to him, but at the same time, I wouldn't have Colin, and I'm not gonna, I would never change anything. But yeah, it was not a good day. But I also got married because I needed health insurance. Just being 100% real.
Wow. Yeah, that always lends to not being good, right?
Yep.
Like
So,
all the signs are there, all the flags are there. And I mean, I could have said, Jay, right? He didn't want Dylan there, and that was a big red flag. Des asked Nick when she was like 4 if she could call him dad, and he told her no.
right? Why?
That's such a big red flag. How did I not in that moment go, what the fudge?
So why would question why do we ignore these such massive red flags? What
Because
is
we
it?
want to be right. There's something inside of us that can't admit we were wrong when we decided to be with these people and when we decided to marry them or have children with them or right, whatever choices we made. There's something inside of us that isn't ready to acknowledge that truth yet.
You know, we were talking a little bit earlier, and we were talking about our inner, our little little, like, I call it my little Dawn, right? It's my little Dawn. It's that little girl in me that's, I I think, what was said earlier was basically the fear and the abandonment and all that stuff is that little, that is in that, that is in there, is that for me. And she is
Right.
scared.
Like,
She is scared.
right. So, like, for me, there's this little girl inside of me, and I can picture her when I talk
Uh-huh.
about her. I'm sure when you do, you can see her.
Hmm.
She's probably 4 years old, and everything inside of her just wants to hang on to the people that are supposed to love her because everybody that is supposed to love her goes away.
So,
Right? Like my
mhm,
mom wasn't there, my dad wasn't there.
uh-huh.
I didn't grandparents, you know what I mean? Like family that were really, really close when I was very, very little, all of a sudden disappeared and I couldn't understand it at that age. And so anytime someone leaves my life, even my son getting married, there's this little teeny girl inside of me, this little voice in the back of my mind that's like, no, don't let him go. No, why would you let go of your boy? You love him. He can't go be with somebody else and start this new life. And hello, that's what's supposed to happen.
Right?
Right? Like, but because of that fear of abandonment, because of that little itty bitty child inside of me that is terrified of losing the only people who are supposed to love me, I had to deal with that voice. I
Right.
had to deal with that. Like, no, this isn't letting your child go. This is allowing him to welcome somebody into our family and bring somebody else in. It has nothing to do with letting him go. But it took a lot to make that inner child, that little tiny girl, understand that.
So when I picture my little Dawn, she's 7 or 8. So this was, there's a lot I would want to add on to what you said, but I actually want to go back to that. So I picture mine as 7 or 8. Why do we, why are, so what, one, why is our little girls, little us, different times? And do you think that there's a meaning behind that? Because I believe everything has a meaning. Um, why,
So
you know what I'm saying?
I I think they're different ages when we talk about this specific situation because that's when the traumas occurred. Or that's when the majority of the trauma or when we realize the trauma.
Yeah,
Um, I think
that's
that
what I agree.
if we talk about, right, if I start talking about my defensive inner child instead of my fearful inner child, then I become a teenager that's ready to stomp her foot and slap someone in the
Yep.
face.
Same here. Same here.
Right. So I think it has to do with when our traumas occurred and with what we're talking about.
Because I agree with you. And that was actually what I was thinking as well, was for me, 7 or 8 was a that is when a lot of, like, trauma got just dumped on me. It was a very, very tumultuous time in my life with my parents. And so that's when I picture the scared little girl.
Right.
I was a scared little girl in that moment. At 7 and 8, that's all I was a scared little girl. I didn't know how to be
It's the
anything
exact
else.
same thing for me. Right. Right. Same exact for me. And what's crazy, not crazy, what's ironic, I guess, maybe, I don't know. What is odd for me is that I don't remember a whole lot at all about being that age. But when I think of that little girl, it is that age.
Hmm.
And when I think of the facts of my history around that age is when all of those traumatic things happened.
Yeah.
Right. My dad left, my stepdad came in, I lost my aunts and my uncles and my grandparents when I lost my dad, and then my dad came back later. And it was it was it was a very traumatic time for me at that age.
And like you said, with the defensive part of it, it was definitely, I was a little bit older. Um,
I can see my
Thanks.
13-year-old self
Yeah.
standing up to my mom and getting in her face, daring her to do exactly what I knew she was going to do. Like, all right, I know you're going to do it. So just go ahead and do it then. I don't care. Go ahead. And anytime I get self-defensive, I immediately go right back to that. You can't hurt me. Go ahead and try. I already know what's coming.
So mine is 11 or 12. And I know exactly like you, I know exactly when it happened. My parents were getting divorced and they came to me and said I needed to decide who I was going to live with. They put adult decisions on a child, and at that moment, I made the decision to that was best for my sister, and that's the minute I started taking care of myself 100%. Because if no adult was going to
Yeah.
take care
It's
of me, then
crazy.
I was going to take care of me. And it's like you said, it's as
I
clear as
remember
day.
that's exactly how I felt when, and it was, I remember the Mother's Day card that I wrote my mother. I know I've mentioned it
Hmm.
before. It was that day. And that was my exact feeling. I can't rely on you. Watch me make myself get exactly what I need to be okay.
Yep. Yep.
Let me show you what I can do. Let me show you who I am. And I still, hell, I had a situation earlier this week, last week, whatever it is, that I got into that exact same mindset and I had to pull myself out of it. Oh, you think you're going to take advantage of me? You think you're going to do something to
Hmm.
me? Let me show you who I am. You must have forgot who you were dealing with.
Right.
Um, and I have to, I get that is that teenager. Let me get you before you get, and it's not even a get you.
Right.
It's a let me show you that I know what you're planning and it's not going to hurt me.
Mm,
It's right. It's not even a get you before you can get me. It's a show you that I don't give a shit and you can't hurt me,
right.
even when it does, because that's my teenager, right?
Yeah.
Because when you're being defensive of yourself, you put up those walls and you pretend. I put up those walls and I pretend not to give a shit.
I think one of the things that helped me in recovery more than, I mean, outright recovery was very helpful as a whole. And I think when, and we've talked about this podcast, right? Michelle Chalfant, and the adult
I
chair.
love Michelle Chalfant.
Oh, me too. But I think that really allowed me to understand me more in who I was and why my behaviors and actions and words and everything were the way they were. Because when I realized that, like you said, oh, when I'm scared and I'm fearful and I'm feeling abandoned, I can go to that little girl and I know exactly where to go to help her work through it. Right. I also have to let her have her
Yeah.
temper tantrums. She gets to have her temper tantrums. She gets to be she can, right? She can cry, she can pout, she can stomp, she can feel all her things. And then, as a good parent, when she settles down, I come back, I come in and I hug her and I love her back to where she knows she's safe. The shit I didn't get, I get to do now to that little girl.
As you say that, Dawn, it hits me that that's what last week was for me. I had a fucking temper tantrum. I broke down. I lost control of my emotions. I cried all over the place. I was angry at random times. I just, my little girl, my teenager, my child, the inner baby, all of it. It came out and I let it. I allowed it to come out. I mean, I don't know if I allowed it or it just gave me no option, right? But it came out. Um, and and now I'm on the other side of that where it is that loving adult where it's like, it's okay. It's okay that I was grieving several losses at one time that weren't really losses, they were positive things. That was what was confusing about it, right?
Hmm.
The losses that I was grieving, I was grieving. It was like a death, all of it, all at once. But it wasn't, they were good things. They were positive things, things that I wanted to happen for life, right? And for some reason, it just took you saying that just now for me to go, oh, that's what that was. That was my inner child. That was my inner teenager. That was that little girl inside of me that was like, fuck this. This is how I feel. And I'm going to let it out. And I have every right to. And I will be okay on the other side of it because I got me.
So, do you remember? And this is what I think is really interesting. And I'm sharing this because I think it is interesting. And I know you're going to want to talk about it. So, do you remember a couple of weeks ago you called me when all this first started going down? And what did I tell you? I can tell you exactly
You
where
got
I
to give me a little
was.
more.
I was walking into
You got to
work.
give me a little
I
more.
will. I will. I was walking into work and I sat down and was talking to you, and I just said, Ashley, let yourself feel it. Let your inner Ashley have a temper tantrum. Let her throw a fit. Let her get it all out of her. Blah 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 blah. And what I
Yes.
and what I
And I
think
said, I
is
don't have time.
yes, I
That, I
think
think
this
that's
is
what I said to you. I don't have time.
yes, and I think this is interesting because right, right when I said it, this is what you needed to do, but you weren't ready. And you said it to
Yeah.
me, I don't have
And
time.
I did. I said I don't and I didn't have time.
Mm-mm.
And I knew what it would be like because it was so intense and it was so
Uh-huh.
big. And I think I said something like, I'm afraid I can't start climbing that mountain yet,
Yeah,
or
something like
something
that.
like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And what
Basically, I
ends
can't
up
go there yet.
happening, right? What ends up happening is my body said, fuck what you think you can do. I have to go there and I'm going there whether you want to or not. And if you don't want to go there when I want you to go there, then I'll go there when you don't want to go there. And I ended
Exactly.
up going there in the middle of work and in the middle of driving and in the middle of talking on the phone to random people.
Right. And I think that's why I wanted to bring this up because I think sometimes, right, we first one have to be ready, right? I have to be ready to receive what's being said and be ready to be able to process and go there, right? I can't just do it kind of willy-nilly. I don't know how else to say that. But at the same time, like you said, I'm going to go there. I'm going to go there whether I want to or not because my higher power is going to get me there. He's taken me there. He does it all the damn time. And so there has to be this, I think we have to find this balance of like be and I think sometimes it's like I don't want to have the temper tantrum. I want to be better than the little girl in me and being
And that's a lot of what it was for me, right? I don't, it's like I know that my mother and I are not at a place where we can have a relationship right now.
mhm,
I know that Nick and I are not at a place where we can co-parent without additional help. I know that Jeb is supposed to get married and have a wonderful, amazing life. I know that Destiny is supposed to move out and have her own family and move on. I know that my aunts are going to die. I know my
mhm.
grandparents are going to die. I know all of these things are going to happen. I know all of these things are positive in the long run things.
Adult Ashley
I,
knows that.
yes. And child Ashley has to feel what she feels when she feels it, or else it's just going to bleed out all over everybody.
Hmm.
And that's right. That's what happened to me last week, right? I mean, in the last year, all of those things I listed have happened. And I have put one foot in front of the other and gone to work and been a strong person for my children and tried to keep a brave face. And I've tried to feel my feelings and be real to myself, but I've attempted to do it in an adult manner. And that's like you were just saying, sometimes we don't need to do it in an adult manner.
But was it in an adult
Sometimes
manner or a control manner? Because what I hear you saying was that's what I heard you saying was you were trying to control
isn't
what
that what adults are? Adults are in control of themselves, aren't they?
they are. But
Right? If I'm sitting in the adult chair, I don't have to act in my sadness. I don't have to act in my anger. I don't have to act in my grief.
but
But
isn't
if
it
I'm sitting in my child chair, I act in it.
right? But isn't it also as an adult, right? We see, and I think I'm thinking about a child, right? I'm thinking about your granddaughter, for example, right? There's a time that she has a temper tantrum because she has all these emotions and she doesn't know how to deal with them, right? And she doesn't have the words to be able to say them because she doesn't have an adult brain to be able to say them.
Right.
And she gets to have her, and we just sit back and we just like, okay,
And
we let her. And right,
but
I
that's
think,
what I didn't do.
right, because you were trying to
That's
control,
what I didn't do.
right? You were doing the
Right. I
unhealthy
didn't
parent
make
thing. Yeah.
space.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. I was trying so hard
Like,
to
stop
be
it. Get up. Will
adult
you quit that?
Ashley.
Hmm.
Yes, stop. We're okay. We know this is a good thing. We want this. This is not bad. Why do you feel this way? It's okay. I understand that you feel sad, but there's nothing to be sad about. It's right. And I tried
Uh-huh.
so hard to be an adult that eventually those emotions and that child inside just overwhelmed me and was like, you know what? Fuck you. I need to do this. I'm going to do it whether you like it or not. And I'm going to do it in the middle of the grocery store with everybody staring at you while you're trying to give a speech. Right? Like,
But,
that's what happens if I don't allow myself to feel those emotions in the moments. Like,
and I think that's one of the, like, the adult, like, allowing, as an adult, allowing a child or allowing my little Dawn. One thing I didn't get growing up was that it was okay to have feelings and emotions and know
right,
that,
if you need to cry and throw a temper tantrum, it's okay. I will let you cry and have your tantrum,
yeah,
and I
it's
will come
okay.
back and give you a hug when you're done.
Exactly. But how many times did you hear, you better stop crying, or I'm going to give you something to cry about,
All the time, right?
right?
Like, you have no reason to cry. Nobody did nothing to you.
You better
All
stop
the
it. You better
time.
shut up. You better go to your go, right? So I was taught that
And,
my emotions and my feelings were not valid.
and so what we are attempting to do, and what I am doing this weekend,
Mhm.
yesterday, the Friday, the day before, what I have been doing for the last 4 days is a term that I'm sure a lot of us have heard and maybe not quite understood: reparenting
Yes.
ourselves.
Yes.
Right. So instead of telling my little girl, instead of telling that inner child to get up, it's okay, stop feeling that way. Instead, what I'm saying is, I understand that you are sad that your son's getting married, that your son got married. It's okay that I'm sad. I
Hmm.
love his wife. I love him. I support their marriage. I'm excited for their future. And I am sad because my son has gotten married and started a family, right? Those two things can coexist. And up until this weekend, I have refused to allow myself to let those two things coexist because they're such opposite ends of the spectrum. How can you be happy and supportive for someone and sad that it's happening? And yet, that's exactly what I feel. So it's okay.
And I think that happens in relationships, romantic relationships. I think that happens right with the death of a parent or an elderly loved one
Right.
because
My grandmother died in August, and it's the exact same thing. There a lot of guilt, a lot of sadness, a lot of missing, and at the same time, she was no longer happy being here. She
right.
was not physically, she was in pain, she was tired, she was unhappy. She didn't want, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's that's what I'm saying. All of these things that have happened, even Nick and I going to court, like, all of this stuff that has happened, it is for the best in my life. They are positive things. It is going to remove battles and stresses and dramas and all of them. And at the same time, there is sadness and grief that goes along with them. And it's okay.
Right.
It's okay to cry about going to court with your ex and fighting with your ex, even though you don't want your ex back. It's okay to cry and feel heartbroken that you're no longer speaking to your mother, even though I know that speaking to my mother brings negativity into my life that I can't handle at this point in time.
You know,
And
and I
it's okay.
go ahead.
It's okay. Sorry. It's okay to deal with all of this at once.
Mhm.
And it's also okay to shove some of it away and try not to deal with it and then let it explode when it has to explode. It's okay.
It is okay. It is okay. And I think, when you said we were, talking about the whole thing of, right, there's a lot going on. I've got all these emotions. I'm dealing with my son. I'm dealing with Nick. I'm dealing with my mother. And my mom is a lot and I can't deal with her and I need to put her on a shelf. Right? I need to put her on a shelf because she's just something has got to go on a shelf and that's okay.
Right.
That's okay, right?
I mean,
You still love your
and that's
mother.
exactly what it is. Absolutely. I love my mother. I ask my brother and sister about her, and we will eventually, at some point, reconnect and continue to
Yep.
work on our relationship. And right now, I don't have enough. I
Bandwidth.
don't know what the word is. So what?
Bandwidth.
Yes, bandwidth. I don't have enough bandwidth to be able to handle her judgments and
Hmm.
criticisms and put them where they belong instead of
Yeah.
taking them into me.
Well, and I think
So,
you're open and raw right now with everything going on with Nick, with everything going on with Jeb, right? You're open and raw. You've got open sores that when she comes in, she's throwing alcohol or vinegar on them and they burn,
yes.
right?
Yes.
And when they get to the point when they're not even scabbed over because they're still sore underneath, when they're
Right. It's
healed,
currently happening.
right? When when those open sores are gone and healed, then you can take her off the shelf and then you'll be able to navigate that again. And that's okay. I think that's
Right.
the biggest thing. It's okay to do that.
Just like with your analogy, because those wounds are healed, for her to throw alcohol on them no longer burns.
Right.
But when those wounds are open and they're contained and they're happening and it's in the process, like when it's all going on, that alcohol is just too much,
Right.
right? Like if I don't have a wound and somebody throws alcohol on, some rubbing alcohol on me, it doesn't matter. But if I have half of my arm ripped off and somebody pours rubbing alcohol on it in order to clear the infection, I'm probably going to pass out.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what it is. And it's okay. It's okay to say, this hurts too much right now. I will take care of this in another day, in another time. Let's put it aside for now.
And it doesn't diminish the importance of that relationship, right? What it means is you've got three situations in front of you right now. You can't,
Oh,
there's
it's more than
nothing,
that. It's a lot.
it is, but like we're
It's like
talking about,
seven of them, but those three are forefront.
yep. So we've got these three key relationships right here. What can you do with Jeb? Nothing. It's his life. He's going to go on and he's going to go do what he needs to do for his life. You can't put that on a
Right.
shelf.
I have to process that. I
Right.
must work through that. I must process that. That cannot wait until later.
Right. Now you've got this
Same with
situation.
Destiny, too.
Well, yeah, I
Right?
didn't
It's
think
the
about
same
that,
with
right?
Destiny in the last year, right?
Yeah.
And the exact same with my grandmother dying and
Yep.
my aunt dying. I cannot, and Nick,
Yeah,
all three, all five, four of those things. I cannot put those things on a shelf. Those things must be dealt with
exactly.
immediately.
And your mom, you can put on a shelf and it does not diminish her or that relationship. It
No,
just
we've been doing
means
this for 40 years. It's okay if it waits another year or two.
exactly. But you're not trying, you're not saying I'm never going to come back to it. You're not saying I never want to look at it again or I want to work on it. It's just right now, this has got to go on a shelf. I love you, mom, but you're on a shelf.
Right. I can't do this right now.
Yep. And
Give me
that's
6
okay.
months or a year and let everything else settle down. Let me process through everything else that's happening. Let me get done with court. Let me get
Yep.
done with the work stuff. Let me move through these grieves of loss that I'm going through. And then I can worry about whatever this is. And maybe even let me build something new, right? Let me
Right.
get to where I have these positive things that add to my life instead of all of this negative that I have to work on and I have to fix. Let me get some of this positive in there too. So I'm adding to my bank account so that maybe when I start to take some withdrawals in dealing with this stuff with my mom, it doesn't hurt nearly as bad.
And there's something saying to say about the work you're doing through this and right navigating through all of this and dealing with it all, that you could come out a completely different person on the other side, emotionally, mentally, because you've had to deal with all of this and work through it, that your relationship with your mom, just because of your changes, could be somewhat different. It could be better.
I'm sure I have no doubt in my mind that that is exactly what is going to happen. I don't know if the word better is the word I would use because I think better is relative to your perspective. Right? My mom's perspective of better versus my perspective of better may be very, very different things.
But
And
but we don't care
I
about
do
what your
believe,
mom's perspective of better is. We care about what Ashley's perspective of better is.
right, to a certain extent, I do believe for me it will be better. That's
Yes.
right. I do believe that for me, everything you said is 100% accurate. I will come out of this the other side of all of this. I am already coming out of the other side of all of this. Very changed,
Right.
very much more grown, able to deal with and tolerate things that I wasn't sure I would be able to, right? You get experience. And then
Right.
when these things come up again, they aren't such a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, and that's what when I'm saying it's better, it's going to be better for you. Like, right, you'll be better. That how your relation, how whatever the other people do, whether it's Jeb, whether it's Nick, whether it's your grandma, whether it's your aunts, whether it's your mom, whether it's Nick, it's whatever. Those people, what they do is theirs. What you do is yours. And right, so if you come through it, it'll
That's
and
all that
it
matters is what I can do with it.
exactly. Exactly. People come and go in our lives every day. Loss is a huge part of our lives. People come and go in our lives every day. And that doesn't mean I am less than because people come and go out of my lives. And I think that's my little Dawn's way of thinking.
Yeah,
And it doesn't make it any easier.
right. And do you know what I think would have made the only thing that I think would have made any of this easier for me would have been if I had been able to let these feelings out when these
Mhm.
situations were occurring, right?
Yeah.
Like when my son moved away for boot camp a year and a half ago, I didn't process that. My
Right.
daughter got pregnant and moved in with her boyfriend. I didn't process. Nick moved out. I didn't process very well. My mom and my grandmother died. My aunt died. Like all of these things just piled up. And there was so much going on at once that I just kept going, I can't, I can't, I can't, I can't, because there was so much. And then at some point, not at some point, a week and a half ago, the shell cracked. And saying I can't was no longer an option because
Right.
it was happening whether I wanted it to or not. And now on the other side of that, that would have been the only thing that I will hopefully be able to do differently next time is that I will process those losses in the moments that they
Yeah.
are happening instead of being afraid that they are too big. I
Right.
just processed all of them at once. Like I just spent a week feeling all of those feelings at one flipping time. It was a lot.
Right. And
And I
that
did it
doesn't
with grace.
and that doesn't mean that next week something's not going to happen and there'll be some grief that pops back up, right? This is a
Right.
process. And that's okay too.
Absolutely. But it didn't kill me.
Right.
So if I'd have been able to feel that grief in that moment when it popped up, it would have been so much less intense than feeling the grief from a year and a half's worth of things all at the same time.
But you said if I could have felt, you could have felt. I think what it is, and you said it earlier when you right with what you said to me, I don't
If
have
I would have
time,
let myself,
right? I don't have time for that right now. But you like
right,
that's part of this is when something happens
make
like
time.
that, is let yourself make the time.
Absolutely.
So then you're not having, okay, let me, you didn't want it. Now I'm going to give it to you and you're not going to like it at all.
Right. Well, and that's right. And that's what I would have done differently. Hindsight is 2020. We
Yep.
get growth, we learn, we process. That's what these experiences gave me is that even when I think I don't have the time, and even when I think I can't handle it, I do have the time and I can handle
Right.
it. And if I had handled those things as they came up one by one, instead of being too busy with everything else, then I would have not had to have a solid week of holy shit, what's wrong with me?
Right.
And even with having a solid week of holy shit, what's wrong with me? I look at that week and the people that I did not intentionally let know what was going on with me, like, I mean, there was a couple of times where it spilled out like at work and stuff,
Hmm.
but for the most part, I look at how I handled it and I look at what happened with everything I was feeling. And I am very proud of myself for the grace, for the, I want to say grace, the way that I did it, the way that I managed it with everything that happened. Right. Yes, I went into my boss's office and cried a couple times. Yes, I went for a walk a couple times. Yes, I went and sat in my car a couple times. Yes, I cried on my way to and from work. Like, yes, it was very emotional. And I didn't say things I didn't mean. I didn't snap at people that didn't deserve it. I didn't hurt anybody in my wake. Um, I didn't I didn't spill all over people that didn't deserve it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Hmm.
It just gives an awareness. It just gives an awareness of what I can do and what I am capable of versus what I gave myself credit for.
And you, and it's being proud of yourself, how for every aspect of how you got through it. The good, the bad, the ugly, the crying, the laughs, the right, just being proud of yourself that you allowed yourself to get through it and work through it in your own time, right? It's not about like right having that conversation a couple of weeks ago, right? In that moment, right? It's that wasn't your time, right? People, I'm sure you talked to multiple people in recovery, and probably most of everybody was saying the same thing, right? Got to let yourself feel it, got to let yourself, but you were just weren't ready for that, and that's okay. Like, I think that's the one thing that we have to be able to understand is the is to find the acceptance of how we navigate things. Everybody navigates things differently and it will look different and it's all good.
Yeah. And also being that low gave me an appreciation of how much energy I have when I am high. Not and I don't mean like high. I mean like being that down in the dumps and being that unhappy and that sad and that negative feelings gave me a major appreciation of the energy I put out when I am happy and things are
Hmm.
flowing and I can handle what's happening around me. Like, not when things aren't stress, because there's always stress, there's always shit, right? There's always going to be bad things in life. And on a day to day basis, on a typical basis, I have a major appreciation for the amount of positivity that I bring to my reality.
Ashley, amazing podcast today.
Yeah, it was really nice. I didn't expect it to go this way, but it was great.
We say this every week or every time we do this.
I did not expect to talk all about myself and all the crap I was dealing. I did not expect to do that, but I really enjoyed it.
But I think a lot of
It's nice to
people,
be vulnerable.
yeah. And right, we're here to share our stories, with with the listeners to help them navigate their own stories and navigate the challenges. And I think, you being vulnerable and putting yourself out there allows people to know. And this is what I want. I should say, I don't know if it does, but this is what I want for people to know it's okay. Right? We can be vulnerable.
Absolutely.
We can struggle and we can come out the other side.
Absolutely. And I just want to put out there for anybody listening to me that knows that me, listening to this that knows me, I love my son's wife. I am super happy that they are married, and I cannot describe how happy I am to have another daughter in my family. So please don't take anything that I have said here as anything meaning different than that. It is simply a mama letting go of her baby boy.
And I think any mom of boys knows that right, there is this loss. And I can get emotional about it just and my kids aren't even like getting married but there's this but man, what do we get out of it, right? What just
I
all I
can't wait to watch their family grow.
right, the joy you get to witness in your son and the happiness and all the things that you know are coming down the road for him. That doesn't mean there's not going to be challenges and difficulties, but man, isn't that all we ever wanted was to see our for our kids or sons to be happy and joyful and there's so
I
much.
hope that I get to meet their great grandchildren. I hope I get
Yeah.
to meet their grandchildren and they bring their grandchildren to meet me together. That's like, I adore
Yeah.
those two, and I cannot wait to see. I just wanted to put that out there. I want to make sure
Yeah.
everybody knows that.
And we also right, we are adults. We have been through some shit. You and I both have been with I've been married twice. You've been had two serious relationships.
Ba-
We also,
Basically.
yeah, right? You've been married twice, but basically. We also know that life happens and nothing is guaranteed. And so just enjoy your moments while you have them.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So, well,
All
thank you.
right, listeners, it has been a great podcast. Dawn, thank you so much. I love you all
Love
and
you
have a
guys.
wonderful week.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
We would like to thank you for joining us on this journey of self-discovery. Visit the Work It website at workityouareworthit.com to submit your questions and topics for future episodes. And remember, work it because you are worth it.